during COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen a lot of numbers, a lot of cases and deaths until January 18 of this year. We have had 95 million global cases and 2 million global deaths, and this is increasing, as you can observe in this graph. Okay. That is the importance of to get vaccines in a timely manner. Regarding the development of vaccines COVID-19, for COVID-19, there are some aspects that we as doctors or as health professionals must know. These important factors is that recruitment period was short compared with the usual 12, 18 months period for other vaccines. It was a fast period of recruitment, more participants than many other vaccines in the development of COVID-19 vaccines. It was no a delay between completion of testing and rollout, and pharmaceutical companies had a good participation in this, and funding, therefore funding was not an obstacle. Side effects in general are transient, with a duration between 24 and 48 hours, and serious side effects are extremely rare. For instance, as we can share in another session with YPLs, we can participate with this type of side effects observed in our populations, for instance, or the range of side effects. No, for instance, here in Mexico, there until today, only 24 patients have presented serious side effects. About confidence and receptivity for COVID-19 vaccines, it is a systematic review of 126 studies and surveys that were selected, which in where some other countries beside US participated, and generally, in summary, declining vaccine they observed a declining vaccine acceptance from more than 70% in March to less than 50% in October. In this graphic, we can observe that in general, the hesitance for COVID-19 vaccination, it was to be higher in the last month of the service. Each 15 days, they recorded the responses of the subjects included in these studies, and globally we can observe that a trend to increase in the hesitancy to the COVID-19 vaccine. Mainly if we can separate this graph by country, by age, for instance, within the US, for the race of the people, we can say that for instance, China and South Korea had the highest rates of acceptance for the COVID-19 vaccines in general, are the lowest hesitancy to a vaccine intention. And on the other end, other countries that it was observed a trend to accept the vaccine were Brazil, South Africa, Denmark. They had high acceptance to the vaccine. And on the other hand, Russia has the lowest acceptance with 54.9%, and France with 58.9%. Regarding the age of the population surveyed, we can say that the people who are less hesitant to the COVID-19 vaccines are people greater than 55 years of age, and surprisingly, the youngest population between 18 and 24 years also has a high acceptance to the vaccine and a lower hesitancy to vaccine. And within the US, for instance, the Asian American population has the higher acceptance rate to a vaccine intention, and followed by whites and Hispanics with 68%, and in the last, with the highest hesitancy to a vaccine intention, the blacks with 40%. Which is the role of healthcare professionals? We are the most trusted advisors and influencers of vaccination decisions. We can help to establish vaccination as the norm. We are agents of a change. We can also switch rapidly to acknowledging and empathizing with the person's concerns. And if we do strong recommendations, they will be effective. It has been reported in a lot of papers. And for instance, we can say to the patients, I can see that you need your COVID-19 vaccine today, or you are due for your second COVID-19 vaccines. However, we must have in mind that main factors have been reported associated with an increased hesitancy about COVID-19 vaccines. One and the main, it is ideological reasons, because COVID-19 and the response to it have become politicized in some countries. The second main factor, which it will be more deeply presented by Biljana in a few moments, are the vaccination opponents and conspiracy theories behind this. We know, and it has been reported, that anti-vax extremists make up only about a third of respondents in surveys who say they wouldn't vaccinate. And the third factor, it is the people who has experienced medical malpractice affecting current trust. For example, marginalized populations, immigrants, low-income subjects, etc. And in the four main factor associated with an increased hesitancy about COVID-19 vaccines, it is people who let others to be vaccinated first, while they receive the benefits of herd immunity without getting the vaccine. And in the last main factor associated with an increased hesitancy is the the young age and healthy individuals, believing they are not at risk from COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Juan Carlos. Wow, beautiful overview. I think it's an exhaustive effort to cover different literature. It's in a way a narrative review of a sort, just covering different regions and distribution of vaccine hesitancy across regions. I really enjoyed your talk. And I think it's a perfect introduction into my talk. But before I speak in more detail about my topic, which is related to cognitive biases and cognitive strategies associated with debunking and pre-bunking of conspiracy theories and disinformation, I think it would be interesting if we open a pool with 6 different statements. Don't be afraid to answer them. I mean, some of them are truthful, some of them are partially truthful. So have some are truthful to some extent, some are entirely false, to see how we perceive some of the statements that are circulating the public discourse, especially the political discourse, and then we will discuss them together and we will address specific fallacies, logical fallacies, or flawed reasoning in case there is some. Don't be afraid to answer them. I mean, they are anonymous. We are not calling on anyone, especially we are interested in the overall opinion. So I think you are welcome to issue the poll. So I'm not going to answer it because I was compiling the questions, but we can wait, let's say 5 minutes until everyone gets their answers, and I can start with my talk.
Yes. Can everybody see the poll?
You can just raise your hand, or if in case you see the poll. I see it.
Yeah, okay.
So we will wait by 2:30, and then I will start. Wow, we are very fast. So far, half of the attendees have responded, which is quite fast. I mean, it's very easy survey. So 2 more minutes, I suppose, and we can start. And in the meantime, thanks to my YPL committee colleagues for suggesting this idea. Atia especially, I think, was the one to suggest it. Two-thirds of the people don't have survey hesitancy so far.
So for the people who just joined us, we are doing a polling for COVID-19, but maybe you cannot see the polling, and we will share the results later. So we have now 18 out of 23 people who have voted.
I think it's a fair number, considering that myself probably, and Juan, and probably you, some of the organizers have sustained from answering, and we are approaching 5 minutes mark. I think we can close the poll. We have interesting responses and very fruitful basis for consideration. So I will now start to address them indirectly. I mean, I'm not going to address them first the statements, but probably I will tackle the cognitive biases associated with some of them. When think you will be able to share the polling results, or the participants are able to see them? Okay, they will see them. We can share the screen after 10 minutes when we arrive at the top. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen to my lecture. And just start by saying that I'm a big believer in hands-on experiences and turning theory into practice, and practicing what one preaches. So if I'm going to talk about cognitive biases, I may as well start with one. The one that I'm going to demonstrate on my personal example is the one called appeal to authority. Maybe you have heard about the appeal to authority. It's basically a tendency to ascribe truthfulness to statements that are coming from people that are perceived as experts, as authority figures. So in fact, I'm going to present myself as the authority figure in the field of conspiracy theories, just because my PhD is in the realm of social neuroscience and social psychology, and my dissertation was on blind trust, tendency to blind trust leaders, neuropsychological substrates of tendency to blindly trust leaders and their messaging, or distrust official authorities. But also I have contributed to 3 edited volumes issued by Routledge series, and all of them are on conspiracy theories. Of all those 3, I'm especially fond of the Routledge handbook on conspiracy theories, because I have only contributed in small details. With small details, I have co-authored a chapter in this book, but it is practically a compendium of knowledge. It gathers knowledge of more than 100 scientists from all over Europe, but also internationally, to tackle different aspects of conspiracy theories. And also I am a national representative for a European funded project on comparative analysis of conspiracy theories. So in a way, I'm kind of very much invested in this topic, and I hope that I can provide some meaningful insights. But I also invite you to take a critical stance, regardless of all the things that I have been doing in the recent years. Maybe I'm speaking some things that you will disagree with. First thing that is important when it comes to conspiracy theories, we must start with the messaging, with the so-called information disorder. because most of us are physicians. We are familiar with the term disorder, and nowadays it's ascribed to the information sphere, public discourses, and the types of messages that are circulating and are being disseminated and amplified, because they kind of differ between each other as regards to the content and the intention. So if the content is not truthful, unreliable, incorrect, inaccurate, but there is no intention to harm anybody, then there is a tendency to call this type of information misinformation. And we find these types of misinformation in our daily encounter in our daily lives in a form of misleading content or false connections of a kind. Malinformation, on the other hand, is associated with harmful intentions. It's coined deliberately, intentionally, with the means to hurt someone. And they are usually present in form of hate speech, harassment, privacy leaks, etc. But the domain, which is a common ground between misinformation and malinformation, is called disinformation, and it contains both of the characteristics, false but also damaging content. And it's usually those messages are coined with for specific political purposes or agendas, not to sound too conspiratorial, some of them aren't, but I mean, they have some aim as to why they are coined. And in any case, you may have encountered them you may have encountered the term. Usually it's called fake news, but between the scientists in communication studies, especially this, there is a tendency to leave the use of this term, because not all of the informations are newsworthy. Not all of the information are entirely fake. Sometimes, and most of the times, they are a combination of fact and fiction. And they are usually used as a mean to attack opponents, political opponents, and undermine their work. On the other hand of the messages stand conspiracy theories. Those are more complex narratives. This is just one example I found on the internet. I don't know how accurate it is. And it's practically an excerpt of the whole snippet of the whole illustration. But you can have an understanding of how complex and elaborate those conspiracy theories are. And conspiracy theories, the shortest definition of conspiracy theory is a plot or a scheme coined or designed by a malevolent individual or a group with aim of harming the person who endorses or adheres to this conspiracy theory. This is the most common and most basic definition, as I mentioned, and usually those individuals and groups are high power groups. And as I say, they have a harmful intention. When it comes to COVID-19 vaccines and conspiracy theories surrounding them, you can see that they are really powerful in a way that maybe no other conspiracy theory has been before. Why? Because they are potent because first they are associated with a phenomenon that is very recent and very urgent and very unknown. And that's why they kind of have a tendency to attract all surrounding conspiracy theories, whether it's QAnon, whether it's 5G, or any other types of anti-vaxxers, any type of other communities. They are all kind of keen to believe in conspiracy theories associated with COVID-19 hesitancy. Why people believe in conspiracy theories? I will show later on that there are, in a way, three types of systems. One is associated with our personality, inherently linked to our personality traits. The other with our styles of information processing, cognitive styles, they are called. And the third is with our beliefs, with our worldviews. But now I'm going to focus on the cognitive biases, logical fallacies, and argumentative errors. This is it may sound seem as a complicated illustration. The important take-home message from this illustration is that And it's a kind of arbitrary, I must say, because all of those categories in a way overlap between each other and there are no clear boundaries. But the thing that you should bear in mind is that logical fallacies are errors in reasoning, flawed reasoning, reasoning which is not happening in consequential, in a causal manner. So it may consist of truthful segments, but when they are linked one to each other, they at the end comprise an inconsistent statement. On the other hand, and they are practically unintentional. Argumentative errors, they are errors in argumentation one uses maybe intentionally in order to win the argument, while the cognitive biases are unconscious and they are practically evolutionary mechanisms people use in order to quickly navigate their surroundings. So it's a way to reach general conclusion with shortest amount of energy and time spent on a matter. In our talk today, I'm going to cover the fallacies and cognitive biases, which are at the intersection of all these categories. But again, I must remind you, this is kind of arbitrary for the purpose of this section. It's not supported widely by scientific literature. It's just for you to have in mind what kind of errors and flaws can happen when we are thinking about a subject or a narrative. Regarding psychology of conspiracy theories, the chapter that is covered by my dear colleague Karen Douglas from University of Kent is associated with the reasons, the motives why people are prone to believe in conspiracy theories, especially in this case, vaccine related. And she practically categorizes them in three different categories. One is existential. So this is related to the need to feel safe, to feel in control of one environment. When something as big as this pandemic happens and it's so unexpected, people reasonably feel shattered and kind of feel that they are losing the grounds and losing control. So in a way, this is a way, a conspiracy theory is a very big narrative designed to match this big event that will provide simple and fast and satisfaction to their need to gain control. The other are epistemic, designed, it refers to the motives for satisfying the need for knowledge. So because as we know, COVID-19 is still unexplained. It's a dynamic process. The scientific consensus is changing, is dynamic, is evolving every day. So this is in a way disruptive for people that are prone to have this need for cognitive closure. It's a cognitive bias where people are prone to have a closure of a matter, of a narrative as fast as possible, or to jump to some conclusion. So with conspiracy theories, this need is satisfied. And also there are social motives. Usually they say, there is a saying, but it's one of the theories in social psychology that conspiracy theories are for losers, but this, you have to take this statement with a ground of caution. And it usually means that people that are dispowered in the society, don't enjoy privileges, like minority groups or vulnerable groups, are prone to believe in conspiracy theories, that it's not their fault if something is happening, but ascribe the malevolent intention to some event, to some outside force, and in a way restore a positive image of oneself. Another system for explaining the psychology of conspiracy theories is related to the chapter that I covered together with a colleague Anthony Lantian and Michael Wood in this handbook I mentioned, and it refers, as I mentioned, to the personality traits, specifically to, maybe some of you are familiar with Big Five personality inventory, maybe some of you are using it in your daily practice. But in any case, there are some studies, there is some evidence, it's not still fully conclusive. There are some robust evidence as to the relation between neuroticism as a personality trait and emotional stability or tendency to feel anxious and to feel nervous and to be easily disrupted, and the link with the belief in conspiracy theories. There are also some studies referring to the narcissism to regard oneself as the center, to have this anthropocentric view of the reality where you are the main actor and all the events are revolving around you, which is also associated with the tendency to trust in conspiracy theories. And also openness, but openness to new experience in some extreme form as a, let's say, eccentric new age paranormal beliefs, or I don't know, some type of aliens beliefs and conspiracy theories can be endorsed by people that are too open to new experience, let's say. As regards the cognitive styles, we mentioned something about the cognitive biases, but here I will only mention that cognitive biases are happening more often in people that have a tendency to have this intuitive versus analytical thinking. So intuitive thinking is automatic, is reflex bound. It's not reflexive, but it's related to the reflexes. It's first gut impression that you have of a topic. It's not willful, deliberate, slow, and dedicated attention to a matter. So people that are quite fast and prone to have a judgment after spending small amount of time on a matter are there is a robust evidence and mounting studies that confirm the link between the intuitive thinking and proneness to believe in conspiracy theories. And at the end, there are worldviews associated with proneness to believe in conspiracy theories. Usually those are people that have black and white Machiavellian regard of the world as either consisting of good or bad people, whether it's dangerous, perceiving the world, whether it's dangerous place or competitive jungle. As regards COVID-related conspiracy theories, and especially vaccine-related conspiracy theories, there is a study nowadays that have analyzed the public discourse and many, like millions Twitter messages in Spanish, English, and I think French-speaking countries. And they kind of analyzed, extracted 1,200 because they gained a lot of traction. They reached around 40 million people and realized that in fact, narratives circling the social media can be grouped in 3 different groups. Some are associated, for example, with with individuality concerns, whether someone will be surveilled, whether he will be tracked. There is even an anecdote of a representative from the immunization committee that gave the account of CNN that, for example, with the immunization, a person will receive an immunity card that will give them due dates for the next vaccination and all of the vaccination that this person is about to receive. And immediately this narrative got distorted in the media, saying that this card will be used by the CDC to track and surveil individuals and to hunt down those that are not adhering to the rule, etc. This is just one example associated with concerns about liberty and freedom and also morality and religion. Also, there are concerns regarding the health of the societal and political and economic issues. For example, I am pretty much sure that all of you are familiar with the narratives that China designed this COVID-19 SARS-CoV virus with the means to destroy the Western civilized society. And then when it came to Western civilized society, maybe China also circulated counterposed narratives, and also some related to Bill Gates as the founding father of the big conspiracy theory related to the COVID-19 virus, so SARS-CoV-2 virus. So you have pretty much clear idea, I suppose. And also a very big group is related to health concerns, whether they were produced safely, whether there was enough time for their production, whether there are some side effects. Can the herd immunity be reached without the need for vaccination? So all of these contribute to an overall hesitancy or skepticism associated with the compliance to receive a vaccine. And this is, as Juan mentioned, a very big problem, because as he mentioned, the hesitancy ranges between 40 and 70% depending on the country. And in fact, even if we manage to receive the vaccine and we have the vaccine, maybe not all of the countries are having the vaccine, starting their vaccination program at the moment, but are expected, even if they start, maybe there will be a problem just because of these behavioral issues. So what are we supposed to do about it? First, we have to prioritize to determine whether the disinformation is gaining traction. If the disinformation is not gaining traction, then it's not very, this is regarding our role in the public discourse. If some of you are public health officials and spokesmen of some organization, then if this conspiracy theory is not gaining attention, usually experts recommend that it's not good to ascribe, to dedicate some attention, because in a way it will reinforce the conspiracy theory. It will fuel the audience with a new narrative, and it will instigate new levels or new circles of the spread of disinformation and conspiracy theories. Also, there is an opportunity, and that's why I use the synonym balance, having a balanced life. For all of those stages, I use like a health associated synonym. The other is pre-banking. They call it also inoculation because it's very similar to the vaccination. It's inoculating people with small pieces of the facts before exposing them to the misinformation, so that they can gain these cognitive antibodies, let's call them, and have a critical stance on someone's saying. And usually this is a strategy that is advised to the journalists, to introduce people with the facts before they present the misinformation. In fact, journalists should practice the so-called truth sandwich, in which they will place the misinformation, because usually journalists are required to refer to the source who has spread the misinformation, but if they are required to do that, then it's best to do it at the middle of the presentation of the story. So start with the facts. For example, COVID-19 vaccines are safe for use. Then say who and how, in what form the conspiracy has been spread, but dedicate not more than a very short amount of energy and time, and then end up by reinforcing and mentioning the truthful fact. This is how one should act with regards to the public discourse. How one should act as when it comes to their role as doctors is a thing that we can discuss all together. And in fact, I think that maybe now it's the time, if you are willing to start a role play, or maybe we can first address some of the statements in the poll, and then after this we can see whether people will be interested with the role play. So I will take some of the statements. I mean, I will address all of the statements that have been mentioned in our survey, and just try to provide the truth as opposed to fiction. One of the, can we have the pool venting just to compare?
I'm sharing this now.
Now I'm actually looking at the truthful statements, the facts, the scientific approach. For example, the one that says that the vaccine development is conducted by different pharmaceutical companies and independent research teams. And I expect that most of you have already said that this is a truthful statement. But I don't see the pool. Okay, I see it. Yes, this is the second statement, and of course, 94% of you has responded correctly to this statement. The opposite of this is a conspiracy theory. So it's either a narrative that the vaccines are a business of the big pharma companies or the business of the scientists to boost their impact factors and or also their finances and budgets. So this is untruthful variant of this statement. The other statement that should be regarded as truthful, and in fact it is by, again, 94% of you, is the sixth one, which says that our understanding of COVID-19 is based on scientific research conducted by teams all over the world, as well as practical experience. Bravo, good job. I'm really happy that in a way we are aligned with our understanding on this. And again, opposed to this statement is the claim that the COVID-19 vaccine is not a scientific research, but it's a different kind of matter altogether. It's either designed for military purposes as a bioweapon or hoax to cover up for some other shady business. Next, I'm going to proceed to the statements that were partially true or mostly untruthful, but framed not very nicely, in a nice way, and I will point to the cognitive biases that may be associated with tendency to trust in them. So these are not factual information, it's combination of fact and false information. So let's go with the COVID-19 vaccine has a terrible side effect. I don't know how many has responded. Okay, it's in fact, I completely agree with the response, the predominant response, the majority of respondents, because there is one tiny detail in this statement that it's kind of inaccurate. It is truthful that it can have terrible side effects, because as we know, there are some allergic anaphylactic shocks in some patients, especially I know about the experiences of patients in UK and Alaska associated with Pfizer vaccine, but it was before all of the others were starting to be administered. So if the statement would have been framed as it may have terrible side effects, not as an obligatory thing that will surely happen, then it would have been entirely truthful statement. Framed as this, it kind of invites a type of bias which is called appeal to probability. So tendency to take some statement for granted and consider it as truthful. If there is even a tiniest possibility for this statement to be truthful. Another statement is regarding the herd immunity and that it will protect us and if we let the virus spread. And I can see that people are kind of divided on this. There are around 30%, 28% that agreed with the statement. And I completely understand where this is coming from. In fact, UK at the beginnings and also Sweden have adopted seemingly this approach. So it may seem as a, how should I say, as a valid reasoning. But in a way, it is associated with a cognitive bias. It's our tendency to attribute consequences and expect consequences as a result of universal force that restores the balance. It's the tendency to think that there is a universal justice, some higher justice and divine force that balances. I mean, maybe you're not aware that maybe this is operating in the background, but maybe it's your wish to think that everything will end up the way you foresee and desire, when in fact we know that around 70% of population need to be vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunity. And then we have the last two statements. Experts say that COVID-19 is no worse than the flu. these are two false information. One is related to experts, the other that it's not worse than the flu. We know by now that it's worse than a flu. For example, in US, they have around 12,000 to 16,000 cases, death cases annually as a result of flu, while they by now have around 500,000, approaching not 500,000, but maybe 400,000. And but I added experts just to use it as an example for the appeal to authority. And I already explained this cognitive bias. And at the end, we have the COVID-19, the statement about COVID-19 vaccine that is not 100% safe, hence it will give you COVID-19. This is false dichotomy. It doesn't mean that if it's not 100% safe, as we know it isn't, it will surely give you, it will surely produce COVID-19 disease. And in fact, it can't because they don't use live viruses for vaccination. So I hope I kind of provided some additional explanation and understanding, and I thank you for your contribution to this proof. Next, in case we are interested, as I mentioned, I envisioned a quiz, an interactive exercise in which people will be assigned either a physician or a patient role. In case you agree, I don't know how we can do it, Venting. Should we ask them to raise hand if they are interested in this? Because either that, or I can jump to the recommendations for physicians, what roles they need to assume when they are dealing with the patients.
Yeah. Just unmute yourself and give us a signal if you still have time for this part, or just give us a sign in the chat. Okay, Carlos raised his hand.
I don't see many people interested. The idea was that those people that have a diploma as general practitioners will be the one to provide arguments to people that will don't have a diploma as general practitioners or physicians and will assume the role of anti-vaxxers. But in any case, maybe, I don't know, what time is it now? Maybe I'm taking too much of time. So maybe I can jump right next to the recommendations for physicians.
Yeah, or maybe Carlos and Rania, they're two participants.
Yeah, but Juan is also a host. We need at least 3 or 4 groups with many people changing the roles. So I think people are kind of embarrassed. Maybe I should have not asked for for explicit expression of interest. But anyhow, now that I did it, I will bear with the consequences. And I think we can jump, it's safe to jump to the conclusions, not as a cognitive bias, but as part of the program. Is it okay with you, Benting, or with Tony? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what can physicians do? They say that the usual approach physicians tend to practice, it's that traditional approach. It's when they position themselves higher up on the hierarchical ladder and provide the facts, provide a closed-end statement. So it's a bit, it can be a bit of a conflicting thing for patients, especially patients with a tendency to believe in conspiracy theories. So what can one do? First of all, it's really important to pick one's battles. So you are not supposed to, for example, tackle a conspiracy theory if this is not a dangerous conspiracy theory. And by dangerous conspiracy theory, I mean conspiracy theories that are associated first and foremost with science denial and with health consequences. Among others, this is 5G. In this group, we can see 5G related conspiracy theories, but also vaccine related and climate related conspiracy theories. So in case someone, for example, believes in flat Earth or that the moon landing had never happened, I think it's not your battle to try to persuade the other and to kind of win him over in your team. Then, if this person, for example, believes that the vaccines are damaging and hurtful, you should, next step, you should assess how willing this person is to change their views, how inherently he believes in those conspiracy theories. As we saw earlier, there are personality traits associated. They are kind of used as a mechanisms to compensate for some emotional needs. So it's perfectly understandable if some person uses them, clings on to them, and it's not really willing to give up on them in any way whatsoever. So then again, you should pick your battle, and there is no way you can persuade him. But once you discover that, for example, someone is believing in damaging, dangerous conspiracy theory, but is willing to talk, then you should ask him. So it's open-ended question without judgment whatsoever. Preferably, you should speak in private, not confront him in public discourse. No one wants to be confronted publicly. And in fact, when having a public conversation, the motivation is changing. There are all sorts of mechanisms like moral grandstanding, desire to be the one who is right, the moral outrage, all sorts of other mechanisms are at play. So you should do it in private and ask questions and try to understand the emotional attachment and emotional arguments. And by asking him, you will realize that maybe there are some common ground, some topics that in which both of you trust, and some views and regards that can be shared between you. Because as I mentioned, conspiracy theories are often tangential or grounded in some small scientific facts. So you can find some common grounds. And then after that, you can start by introducing your view, but introducing it in not using scientific jargon, because again, you will confront him, you will alienate him from you. The idea is to have a common journey together, to represent oneself as allied with the other person's interest, as you in fact are, to reach a common understanding. And but also clarify your role, because people that are prone to believe in conspiracy theories sometimes are also prone to perceive others as representatives of this society. So you should kind of clarify that you are not an agent for the big pharma industry. You have no personal interest in the matter whatsoever. But also you should not sustain or refrain from using some scientific facts. Not too much, not too much in abundance, but for example, ask about the source of information he or she is using, and then counter pose a truthful and reliable source of information. This is a very short overview of the approach a physician should have to their patients in addressing the issue of COVID-19 vaccines and the hesitancy surrounding it. I hope I was helpful, and I will stop my streaming of the presentation now, and in case someone has a question, I'm willing to address all of the questions. And I don't see.
Renia raised her hand. Please.
Renia. Okay, go ahead, Renia.
Well, thank you very much for this very useful conference. And I would like to ask something for the Macedonia, because you are in Macedonia. I would like to ask something because a lot of patients, they have maybe the symptoms, we can say the vague symptoms that is related to coronavirus, like a headache, like a dry cough, these things, but they deny to have a test for corona. They deny to when I'm asking them that they should take a test for corona or something, they said that this is not corona. I don't know what, they denied that this is the symptoms of corona. Then how I can treat with these patients, how I can orient them about the test. And as a deep question for the doctors, what I can say, what is the uses of testing every patient for corona? Then I can treat them as a coronavirus. I give them all treatment, but why I should insist the patient to test for corona? This for epidemiological, research or something, or that's it. This is my question. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your insightful comments and questions. As the way I see it, we can split the questions, one for me and one for Juan, maybe. The second one, which was medical in nature, whether there is a need, if I understood, to really vaccinate all of the patients, maybe Juan would be willing to address it. And the first one regarding the argumentation that the patients are offering, I will just have to reiterate my point on this. Maybe I can share a screen here of a handbook, which is very useful. I can share the reference with you. And it really provides this role play very plastically. Let me see whether I can share the screen. And let me know if you can see it. So in essence, it simulates a situation in which a patient is practically saying the things that Rania mentioned. It's not, I don't want to have a vaccine. And in fact, according to this handbook, which is written by an expert in social psychology, Stephen Lewandowski, he again reiterates that it should, first we should ask open-ended question, why do you think so? Then we should reflect and try to summarize what their statement and their reasoning was regarding this. And again, then try to acknowledge the emotional component, to affirm that we understand them. And only after that, we can, by taking into account their position, offer our aspects by providing also scientific facts on the matter. It's a large text to digest here, but I try to summarize it in brief. And if you are willing, I can share this handbook. It's quite useful because it's very practical. So you will kind of have a strategy, regardless of the argument the patients are using, just to a strategy on how to face them and how to interact with them. I hope this kind of gives an idea. I will share the reference on regarding my take, but also informed take on this matter. As regards the second issue,
anyone wants to share with us your own experience in the medical practice or in your practice?
Yeah, yes, please, Has.
Hi, I will shamefully add something despite that I arrived late. Sorry for that. But that's what the question is related to a research field that we do here at Hopkins. We have a center called Center for Diagnostic Excellence, and we study diagnoses and diagnostic value. And I think your questions has multiple layers because number one is there is a diagnostic value, which is what is the value of that diagnostic test. And a lot of people use the sensitivity and specificity, the accuracy, and there are many metrics. But there is a more important measure of any diagnostic test, which unfortunately we don't use it much in practice, but it's the real deal for any diagnostic test, which is the diagnostic threshold. And you rarely hear diagnostic threshold in research because it's a bit complex to calculate. But for COVID, a lot of the time we actually don't need to do the test because the diagnostic threshold is so low. Even that the test is accurate and has a good sensitivity and specificity, the threshold is very low, which means, let's say I live in Baltimore City, and when a patient comes to me and I see some symptoms and I suspect COVID-19, before I even offer the test, I have to know what is the incidence rate and the prevalence rate in Baltimore City. Is this person a Baltimore City resident? And if yes, just by guessing alone, by saying if this symptom then equal COVID, I probably have a 90% chance that it is COVID. And through just the epidemiological data and the diagnostic threshold. So by doing the test, I'm incurring a cost that will add probably 1 or 2% beyond my existing knowledge already from the epidemiology. And therefore the threshold for that test is so low that sometimes even if it was negative, we still treat that patient as COVID patient because it's so widely spread that it's pointless to test. And most of the time we actually just test patient because we just want the report to the CDC and like to track the incidence rate and the prevalence rate. But from a clinical individual patient treatment perspective, you could just go with treatment without even doing the test. And the question now is, what is the treatment value for that diagnostic threshold? And the treatment value is also so low that you don't even need the test, because most of the treatment for the average patient is just go and sit home, get rest, and stay there for 2 weeks, because there is no actual treatment for COVID-19 unless they are a high-risk group, then that's a different scenario. And therefore you end up, the value of having the test is almost worthless, because the decision, you can make the decision without the test, and the decision, the subsequent treatment decision based on the diagnostic decision is so low because there is no actual treatment. You just go home and quarantine for 2 or 3 weeks. Therefore, it's pointless to insist in doing the test, especially among young, healthy patients that we know they are not at risk of developing complication. So that's how we look at it from an epidemiological and diagnostic value.
Yeah, I really like in medical professionals that they really kind of always strive to have a clear protocol. And thank you for describing this concise and clear protocol of prioritization in a way as to the matter of why one needs test or doesn't need test. In fact, the thing that I was doing, it was in a way introducing a protocol from a behavioral aspect, whether one should be someone's beliefs and tendencies in to trust in conspiracy theories or disinformation should be addressed. So we are kind of speaking, if we are thinking about the form, we are speaking about similar things. But it's really nice to know that there are clear protocols as regards the testing. And I hope Rania has received the best and the clear-cut response to her answer. I wish also maybe you can all enlighten me. What are the protocols and priorities regarding the vaccine and the strategies regarding the delivery of vaccines? I know that the vulnerable people, older patients, medical staff are the first in line, but maybe the strategies are different depending on the country. I don't know if someone is willing to share their experience.
Rania?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rania.
Rania, okay. Rania, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you for explanation. And if I'm not insisting too much questions, but I would like to ask about us as a medical field, as a doctors, how we can treat with the vaccines, with a lot of vaccines, and which one we can choose for better. You know, all the results and all the research about vaccines is a little bit confusing. I know it's not like 100% information about each vaccination, and every vaccination they take it for a certain population or certain people in the world. They said that there is a side effect, and as we are the first line in the vaccination, that every vaccination who enter the country, we are in the how we can say we are the first line who will give us the vaccine. That's why I have a little bit confusing issues about the vaccines and which one we can choose, which one is approved. As you know, there is a Chinese, there is a Pfizer, there's a lot of vaccines, as we know. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your insightful questions. I think these are perfect preparation for the Global War series, because I think participants will be addressing the national strategies on and priorities in each of the countries, the priorities they place over different types of companies and vaccine providers. But in case someone wants to share their experience, you're very, very welcome.
And Raul Destra also raised his hand.
Hi, hello. Good evening from here. The things that really has an effect on how we should approach patients with vaccine hesitancy, and the other one is on diagnostic hesitancy. Here in the Philippines, it created some form of stigma among patients who are actually diagnosed with the disease. The challenge really here is not the getting the diagnosis, but the response of the community towards it that makes people a little bit scared getting labeled as positive, which is actually, I believe, an end effect of a massive disinformation. So I think the challenge here, whether it's for seeking the diagnostic validations of the illness versus at the same time improving our appreciation on how vaccines can actually help in protecting the community, the greatest challenge really here is the amount of information being released out there in social media and all the others. And clinicians are sometimes are having difficulty correcting those misinformations coming in from our clients, our patients entering our clinic, because some of this information released out there, they took the time to really make it very, very believable, and sometimes getting them to understand the differences between the right info and the correct one. It's become a challenge to the clinicians on how to go about it. So basically, uh, it's very difficult to have a single fit for all of this, because part of that is culture and part of that is perceived uh, effects on the vaccine. And what I'm saying is really uh, we really need to improve our communication skills in terms of providing the right information and guiding our patients on which one is the right one and which one is correct, the wrong one, as we navigate the information being released out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. So Has is next in line to just provide his insights, but I will just briefly mention that I completely agree. And this is why that the public discourse is becoming saturated with all those different kind of rumors and informations. And this is why the leaders are now important, and the public health officials and to, especially the political leaders, the ones who are responsible for restoring trust in the institutions and officials. And we have already seen examples of good leadership, for example, in New Zealand, and as a result, a good vaccine adherence, or I would say low rates of vaccine hesitancy. And in a way, this is a political issue of sorts, I must say. It's as much political issue as a public health issue. In fact, there is a big polarization if you compare the right wing and the left wing, especially in United States. You will see that there is some overlap with the political ideology and tendency to believe in conspiracy theories. So that's why the role of leaders is very important, but also of those influencers, of public speakers. This is up to the governments to design a strategy. For example, I don't know, a public taking of vaccines, which already some of the leaders are exercising in front of cameras, but also public challenges instigated by celebrities and influencers. So this could be one way to tackle the issue, and quite powerful, even though we as physicians don't have a big role to play in it. But as far as our role is concerned, I already mentioned that the biggest service we can do right now is to sustain from tackling those conspiracy theories that are not gaining traction. I'm referring to the public discourse, but rightfully and beautifully tackle those if we are in a role of a public speakers that are becoming widely spread across the population. Has?
Thank you. You mentioned a very important point, which is how politics interfere with science, and that's definitely what happened here in the U.S. And Raul mentioned a good point about the media and what they contributed to the misinformation. And I can speak about our experience here. All the tech company actually in the United States, like Apple, Google, Amazon, you name them, and we work with them on research. They all ban COVID-19 apps, informations, everything about COVID-19 on their platform since March 2020. So there is no way that you post anything related to COVID-19 on those platform, or even develop an app to spread that information. However, people found ways to go around that by establishing platforms, forums, and eventually it become political issue, and then it become on the mainstream media where you can't ban it now because now it goes into the freedom of speech. And that unfortunately contribute to a lot of deaths in the US. On the part about the vaccine, there are, in relationship to you as a doctor versus in relationship to the patient. To the patient, and the policy on how the vaccine is prioritized, at least in US, is based on our data. For example, where is the highest mortality, where is the highest incidence rate, and the mortality indirect to the incidence rate. And therefore we started with the frontline healthcare workers, and then the people who live in nursing homes, because the highest mortality in the United States, if you see these waves of deaths in the US, is because we have a lot of nursing home where people over 80 years of old, usually they go there, live shortly, and they die. What happened is that COVID swept into the nursing home, and therefore we had massive number of deaths among those who are 80 years or older, because they live beyond 80 years here in US on average. So that was the second wave of vaccination. And then they opened it 65 and older for public. On the type of vaccine, before you pick a type of vaccine, this is the first ever vaccine that works on an RNA virus, and it's the first vaccine that works on a T cell mediated immunity. So it's a bit, it's on the powerful side. But the first thing is the vaccine has to be approved by an official evaluation body. For us in US, it's the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. We will never use any vaccine unless it has an FDA endorsement. And even if you are in a different country, get something that at least endorsed by FDA or the equivalent agency in the European Union, because they follow standard clinical trial reporting and clinical trial safety and vaccine safety research. I would not take a vaccine that has been approved by an agency that I have no idea how they are approving it. For example, if I go to any of the vaccine that FDA approved or the European Union, I can just go online to the FDA website. I can download the vaccine data. I can see all the paperwork that for example, Pfizer or AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson submitted, and I can even look at the data. I can look at the numbers, the safety, the incidence report. Everything is public. Therefore, you feel that the information is not hidden, it's in front of you. And second, once it's approved by an official body, take any vaccine, honestly, because not everyone is getting the vaccine. I don't think we have the luxury to choose which vaccine to take. People are standing in line and waiting for, probably a lot of us will wait for months to get the vaccine. Some of us are lucky because we work in hospitals and we will get it quickly, but others we probably will wait till the end of the year or probably next year to get it. So just get something that is readily available and officially approved. For a larger policy perspective, sometimes you weigh in whether you want to take a 2-dose versus 1-dose vaccine. Do you want to take one that require a lot of logistic hassle or some that can be transported easily? These are individualized decisions for each country to make based on their circumstances. But here we have all of them, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and I think Johnson & Johnson is coming soon. They're all approved, and I honestly just take whatever available in front of me. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting topic. I mean, I think maybe the other countries will not have the luxury to choose. I know from my national experience that we are still struggling to have a contract with Pfizer. So in the meantime, Sputnik is offering their vaccine. So this will be very interesting topic for discussion. What to do when you don't have the FDA certified vaccine, but your national representatives are offering some types of substitute. I can see that Peter also offered some reports, if I understand correctly, as to the efficacy and assessment of Moderna, and I suppose these types of reports exist for all the other vaccines. So maybe one take-home message is to also you as an individual, even though you are a physician, to get informed before suggesting something to the patients, because we know this is a dynamic topic that is evolving with each day, and maybe this is also the reason why, as Raul mentioned, vaccine hesitancy happens, because general public may get the impression that also physicians are not aligned on the issue. For let's take the masks as example. At the beginning, they were not strictly recommended. They were not obligatory. Now, in some countries, they are, and the scientific consensus is reached on this topic. But we must be aware that this will be a cause for possible traction in the public and some hesitancy and skepticism. So we should inform ourselves and then inform the patients. But also maybe we should also act as public speakers. So I don't know what is your stance on this, but also Twitter accounts, social media, offering your insight as a trusted individual would be a way to counter the disinformation in the public discourse. This is my feedback.
Yeah, and how about the low and middle income countries, no? Because as I know, vaccines are not available in all of this. No? Someone who wants to share their experience, his experience.
Well, maybe I don't have direct experience from low and middle income countries, of course, but let me just point you in a direction of a project or a movement that IAP is involved in called the Sustainable Health Equity Movement. Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat in a minute, but this is a group that has come together sort of informally to really push for the equitable distribution globally of, first of all, a few months back, of treatments and access to treatments for COVID, but especially now the vaccinations, trying to persuade WHO and even the WTO to waive patents. I think there is a letter went from India and South Africa to the WTO, and right, the last few days there was the executive board meeting of the WHO, and there was sort of letters and statements read out at that meeting. Really, I mean, a lot of countries, the UK among them, have verbally committed to equitable distribution of vaccines, but the sort of practice on the ground is more like hoarding, and we can afford it, so we're going to buy it up for ourselves. So this movement is trying to sort of get a global number of different medical agencies, NGOs, others interested to sort of work together to push for this equitable distribution. What we can do against the forces of commercialism and self-interest is difficult, but we are trying.
Yeah, this is fantastic. This is kind of a tangible outcome of this session. If we have any information about the movement, but also, I don't know, what are the means to join the movement? Is there any criteria, or how can we be proactive?
You can join as an individual or as an organizational representative. So let's see. But
it's great that we can articulate in a way some thoughts and, I don't know, take home messages from this in a more concrete outcome by joining some movement. But yeah, for sure I will check the link. Thanks very much. And who are the main organizers? I don't know if I understood correctly. Maybe I lost this part.
Okay, there are a group of, they have what they call now an interim steering committee, which is a quite loose arrangement. There's people from PAHO, myself from IAP, there's a diplomat, a Spanish diplomat that lives in Cuba who's just contracted COVID, actually. There's people, the Brazilian Academy of Science and Medical Science. It has quite a Latin America influence at the moment. So certainly bringing in groups from Africa and Asia would be interesting at the moment.
Great. I mean, maybe can we enter it as a YPL?
Yeah, why not? Maybe Mathoni and I don't know if Sabina is listening at the moment. We can share. There is actually an open call for people to be considered for a more formal steering committee that is being instituted. I think there's a deadline by the end of the month. So either submitting as individuals, feel free, or to IAP by the 25th, because then we would submit on behalf of IAP to the group.
So this is perfect, very, very useful. If you can share this summary, the links with us and the info about the deadline, I think everyone agrees that we would be grateful, because it's eye-opener. It will give yeah, a beautiful closure to this presentation and to this talk, and some meaningful outcome.
Maybe one other update from IAP, and all YPL will get an invitation when we're ready. We are organizing a global webinar on vaccine hesitancy in order to try and give some training to our academies and our academy communications people and people that may not be medical personnel. They may be astrophysicists or organic chemists or whatever, but they're in positions of authority and trust in academies in their countries, and we want to, I think, what did you call it? The sort of positive messaging, the inoculation that academies can do. We want them to sort of take up this process and start giving the factual information. So this will be probably in March. So we're putting it together now.
Wow, we are ahead of time. The YPLs, the youngsters. I hope we gave you some ideas.
Oh, that's why I'm here.
Perfect, and we are really looking forward to real experts, senior experts hear them talking about inexperienced individuals, talking about vaccine hesitancy at the end of March, as you mentioned, right? That is great. I'm personally really looking forward to that event.
And to what Peter said, just to give you a small piece of history, and it just came to my mind. A few months ago, someone was when the pharma company started announcing about these vaccines and how they are doing patents, and they are establishing companies and going to Wall Street before the official announcements and all of these things. And one of my friends was celebrating how the corporate sector is saving the world. And my response to him, and it was that since when vaccine was treated as a product for profit and has to be patented and go to Wall Street before doing that. And if you just know your history, the last vaccine, like the major one that was developed, was the polio one by Jonah Salk. And when Jonah developed the vaccine in 1955, he refused to patent it. And at that time, the patent worth $7 billion, 1955. So that man and his family could have become the richest person in the world at that time. But because of it was urgent and it was a life-saving for many people, and especially for developing country, it was never patented, and it was distributed globally. And the amount of greed and profit nowadays with the vaccine industry is just beyond words. I mean, I don't think countries will get the vaccine. I'm trying to be optimistic, but other countries will not get it even this year, probably next year or even the year after, because those companies wants to squeeze as much possible revenues from the one that can pay before they can offer to the one that can't pay.
It's even a conspiracy theory.
No, it's in the news. I mean, you can go and see that. I mean, the United States signed a contract in advance and paid billions of dollars in advance before even the vaccine was developed. European Union did the same, and that money was not even counted toward the vaccine. We had to pay again for the vaccine.
And of course, this promotes at least one cause of hesitancy. You know, it's the companies, they've got it all tied up, and we don't trust them. I might smoke and pay all my money to big tobacco companies, but I don't trust the pharma companies. But that's a different argument.
Yeah.
It's a question also on production capacity, because there is a lot of discussion around production capacity, but production capacity is there, just not in the companies who need the production capacity. And it's also a question whether we talk a lot about the sharing economy and that instead of competition, we should be collaborating, but we don't see too much of happening here, even though it's really a life or death question.
If you search, there's a new phrase, vaccine diplomacy. So if you search that, you'll see all these arguments, whether the maintaining the patent on the Pfizer one allows the Chinese one to come into Africa, for example, and there's all these international playoffs. India is starting to produce its own and others for the Indian market. And there's a lot of different
a lot of politics. Yeah, there was a very nice report on NPR. NPR is a public radio, and you can tune on it online about it's not only about the production capacity, but also as simple as the glass container for the vaccine. Because the glass container is from a very high grade glass that come from a specific type of sand. And they signed a contract with a company in Germany to produce that glass container for the vaccine. And they have to now ship tons of sand to Germany, to that company, because they don't want to do contracts with other companies. It's in that place. And that company doesn't have capacity to produce glass containers for everybody. And it's the same with the logistics. They need 20,000 planes to transfer the vaccine because it needs these freezers. We don't have 20,000 planes flying in the world. There's only 8,000. So there are real challenges beyond the greed that exist, and they are real. But at the same time, I know a lot of people who are close friends who actually worked in the trials for the vaccine. They were like one of the key people in like the Pfizer vaccine or the Moderna vaccine. From their perspective, they have been doing they are on a mission to save lives. And they did it with a dedication to save lives. Their company may have a different aim, but the people who actually develop the vaccines are really good people, and I know some of them.
Perfect. I think we should close this webinar. Thank you to all of you for your participation, and I want to let you know that in the next webinar will be about our experiences as YPLs in our countries about COVID-19 vaccination and all hesitancy. The more information you have or you want to share with us, you are all invited. Shurah and Biljana and all the people who are organizing this next webinar are interested in hear about your experience. Nora?
Well, I just wanted to say, don't forget, we also have an online leadership development seminar planned for next Friday. Is it Thursday? You can sign up. There is a link in the chat. We will keep the sign up until the end of today open. So please make sure you get yourself on the list today, Central European time today. So it's great seeing you all. It's so great that this is picking up. So fantastic work.
Thanks everyone. Special thanks to Juan Carlos for initiating this webinar and proposing the idea, and also thanks to the colleagues from YPL Alumni Committee. And in fact, I'm not the one who is organizing Global Bard Series. It's Atia and Suraj. I think both of them are here. So Thanks everyone, special thanks to the audience. I'm really happy that we were around 30 people this time. Yay! Perfect. Have a beautiful day and enjoy your day or evening wherever you are. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Maybe a photo. The photo.
Bye, everyone.
It's 24 of us, now 23. It would have been nice though. If someone is interested, we can make a print screen.
Yes, a photo.
Okay, let's do it. Whoever is here and who wants to join with camera. I see Raul, my old friend. Hi, Raul.
Hi.
I'm very happy to see you.
Nice to see you.
So let's try to do a group photo.
Okay.
All turn on your cameras.
Yes, please.
Yeah, you should say 1,
Whoever
2,
wants
3.
to join, just turn on their cameras. I know it's a bit tricky thing to ask. Maybe someone of you is in their pajamas. I understand completely. But yeah, I see very friendly faces. Okay, I'm going to take the print screen of this photo I don't know whether I have all of you. Can also venting, I will ask for backup. I'm going to do a print screen, but I don't know whether I have everyone. So in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. YPL! Okay. I have taken 2 print screens and we will share them with you for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone. See
Bye-bye.
you in the next webinar session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks for coming. Thanks for finding time to join us. It's really nice to have you.
Yeah.
I know that you have had some other obligations, but
yeah, no, but I'm not saving the word.
well, but it's always important to have someone from the hosts. But Venting did a perfect job. I mean, she was perfect logistics.
I'm sure
I don't know if I have saved these pictures of Venting. If you have a backup, we are fine. I'm just thinking in case someone wants to ask something, but I can see that.
No problem. I can share a picture with you.
I have to drop off. Bye. See you
Bye
soon.
bye. Bye bye. I'm leaving too. Bye.
Biljana, if you would like to share your slides, you could also email them to me and I can upload them to the platform.
Yeah, I don't know what's the usual practice. If I can also coordinate with Juan in case he wants, we can do it.
Okay.
In order to have a complete presentation available.
Okay.
But we also have the recording, right?
Yes, exactly. I will send you over.
You are awesome. I'm very, very grateful to you. I know that the quiz was